Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy. As always, Nick Mikhalevsky here from the Giving Block and joined by my colleague Pietro Moran. Pietro, what's going on?
How's it going, Nick? It's been an exciting week, but doing well. Hope everybody's having a great week that's tuning in. Thanks for joining us. And I think we got a big kind of week of updates and things to kick off. So excited to get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of news to share. Moving on, we'll do the price check. We'll do some stats from July. Lots of great information to share and a lot of news that we want to bring to you as well. Conference season is in full swing, so we'll give you a little bit of an update from the conference scene. And of course, if you want to submit some questions, just like last week, I threw my email address in there, keeping it up there again this week. So again, we want to hear from our listeners for, ideas that you want us to potentially touch on future episodes. If you've got questions, really an open forum. If you have maybe some potential guests that you think would be valuable for us to talk to, we're starting to collect those for future programming. So feel free to drop me a line. We have decided to keep the $500 in Bitcoin promo open a little bit longer. So again, if you are crypto curious or interested to kickstart that crypto fundraising journey, a nice little boost from the Giving Block when you get started. And with that, Pietro, I'll toss it over to you in terms of what's happening on the market side of things. A little bit of fluctuation in prices recently. What's kind of been going on there?
Yeah, I was super excited going into last weekend. Prices were rallying. And, how do I put it? It seems like the summer wants to stay a little bit slower than we otherwise anticipated. So looking at our top 10 coins here, Bitcoin's sitting right around $64,700. Really, there's a couple reasons I think that this is playing out. One, I don't think like all of the sort of legacy traditional trading folks are back at their desks. Everybody's still at the beach hanging out. And so crypto prices got a little excited, got closer to that $70,000 level, especially coming off of Bitcoin 2024, which is a conference in Nashville we'll talk about later. But I think everybody's saying, you know what, we're not quite ready for new all-time highs yet. We're going to consolidate a little bit lower and just kind of let people enjoy their summers before forcing everybody to come back in. So prices, as I mentioned, a little bit muted this week. Ethereum right around $3,200. All of our kind of meme coins and sort of fun alternative investments a little bit down. You see things like Doge are down, XRP down. But all that to say, I don't think that the enthusiasm has gone away in the market. I think it was a little bit of froth and overexcitement in the short term. Bitcoin ran up to about $70,000, looked like it was going to break through to a new all-time high. And then, the steady hand of the market humbled some folks. We're still at a super elevated price level considering like historical prices, but we're not quite off to the races just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's been interesting too, because on the market side where we sort of feel like it's summer, right? Folks are relaxing. Interestingly enough, it kind of leads us into sort of the next, section on what we're kind of seeing in July on the donation front. It sort of feels like folks are very jazzed about what's happening in the space. And, we'll talk about, some of the updates that we saw around the industry at some of the industry conferences and some of the news that was made there. But, July from a donation standpoint wasn't really that quiet. Folks remained really, really energized. Giving was very strong. And so, what we thought sometimes might be a little bit of like a sleepy June, July, just hasn't been the case, which is phenomenal. And those organizations that have been, mentioning this to donors have been doing extremely well. And I have just a couple of quick stats here on the screen. And as a reminder for everybody, we're talking about crypto philanthropy. But when we think about sort of the non-cash asset suite that the Giving Block, has perfected, it's crypto, stock, and DAF. And so I wanted to highlight a couple quintessential donations that came in across all three of those assets. So another big US university getting a really nice major gift in crypto. We're seeing this come in more and more. On the stock side, a health and wellness org with a nice $52,000 stock gift. And again, this is July. This isn't September. This isn't October, December. And then again, on the DAF side, an economic development org getting a nice $6,000 distribution, well above the average gift size across all these assets. So yeah, donors giving about $4 million, close to that, across those assets just in the past 30 days. So not a sleepy summer on the donation front, which is great. It's setting up for what could be a really great fall giving season. And again, just seems like, prices aside, seem to be a lot of excitement in the market, a lot of excitement with donors. And maybe it's a kind of a good sort of lead in to, what we want to update on the news front. I mean, Pietro, you were at Bitcoin 2024. Love to hear, some of the big, the big things that hit at that conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your point is super well taken, right? We have all of these sort of cyclical and seasonal swings in terms of people's engagement over the course of the year. I think that's totally natural, but we also love to buck the trend in a positive way, right? I think one stat that I want to highlight, and this is something I think that is relevant to those in the philanthropy ecosystem. When you look at crypto across, donations for both nonprofits, I think we're also seeing a really interesting stat last weekend. Even on the political side, I know that Giving Block, we try to stay agnostic and really not bring politics to light. But to emphasize one thing, crypto is really a tool to achieve your philanthropic goals. I saw that just last week. In the political realm, over $25 million of crypto donations were made. And so that's not to say that we endorse any candidate or anything like that, but I did find it interesting to see that that was one of the preferred modalities of people giving in general, which I think just speaks to me as a technology. It's permeating people's, mind share. It's growing in mind share, and it's getting, to all facets of their giving, whether that's for, civic reasons or for nonprofit philanthropic reasons, which I thought was pretty cool. On the, kind of dovetailing with that, Bitcoin Nashville, it's the kind of preeminent Bitcoin conference. They have one every year. One thing I really wanted to take away is that there was, I think, a concerted kind of vibe shift, if we want to call it that, amongst the attendees. Again, not to get political, we had some high kind of profile political, speeches given about crypto last week. A couple major, presidential candidates talking about things like a strategic Bitcoin reserve, talking about how the U.S. government can incorporate, a sort of store of value asset like Bitcoin, similar to the way they do gold, into their portfolio of held assets. I think these are pretty relevant things to highlight, not because of one political party embracing or endorsing crypto per se, but to say that there has been effort and, thoughtfulness put behind having a strategy for this industry and the relevance that it has across the conversation of, philanthropy, business, or just general openness in the United States in particular. I think the United States is a regulatory leader across the world. And so when we get more and more clarity for startups, entrepreneurs, people building in the space, and even folks like those institutions on Wall Street that are offering crypto related products, one of the highlights on this podcast, I would say, on the show, is talking about the introduction of more traditional avenues for this sort of non-traditional asset class. I felt like people in the room were more and more motivated to get involved with crypto than I'd seen in a long time, especially on the heels of saying, we're going to have an election. Both sides of the aisle are trying to dig in and talk to industry leaders to figure out how to do this right. Because I think they recognize it's a sufficiently large industry with a sufficiently large, user base. I think over 50 million Americans hold crypto or have touched it in a recent time frame, which says, we want to make sure our constituents are happy with the policy proposals that we put forward over something that's a piece of their portfolio. So all that to say, Bitcoin Nashville, folks were super, invigorated. Builders are building, VCs are funding the space, politicians are talking about the space. It's pretty, we were talking about this before the show started, but pretty stark contrast to the last couple of years that we've had, where crypto was maybe a side discussion on the Hill or in other places, and it was a bit quiet on the news front. Now it just seems like every week we have something cool to talk about, which is a great thing for us making a show on a weekly basis with the recap. But yeah, that's my recap on Bitcoin Nashville. It was really, really exciting. Nashville's a great town. Got to hang out on Broadway, have a couple drinks, and chat Bitcoin and crypto with other like-minded people. But what are you seeing, Nick? I mean, is there anything that stood out to you as far as the news cycle?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting to see, how far the industry has progressed, even from a couple years ago. And again, we talk about, the end. It's just a different vibe. And what we're seeing, participants not only in the market side, the regulatory side, and the nonprofit side. It's something that is getting back on the priority list of lots of organizations, and great to see. We've got a lot of great things to talk about, and again, sort of goes back into everything we're seeing on the donation front. So I think we're shaping up for a really incredible fall giving season, and it's going to be, really, really, really exciting to watch what plays out.
It is going to be pretty epic. I mean, I think we are in a unique place, especially in a unique time of the year. I mean, we're going into an election, so a lot of people are talking about crypto. We stay apolitical and agnostic here, but we also are, I guess, encouraged to see that it's making its way to the highest levels of conversation, and people care enough to, not make it a single issue thing for their voting, but to have it as a part of the consideration for a platform. I think that's pretty unique. Not a lot of that happening in the past, so I think we're all making productive developments there. The only other thing I wanted to make mention of on the news side is that we have a potential IPO coming up with a company called Circle, who's the issuer of a stablecoin called USDC. And sort of the industry back channeling and rumors is saying that they're trading around a $5 billion valuation. For anybody who watches sort of the public equities markets, hasn't been a super hot IPO season. It's interesting to see that some crypto firms are potentially leading the way and reinvigorating that new public offering to public markets. And we'll keep an eye on that. But it's just interesting to see that these companies are achieving multi-billion-dollar valuations, not just in the corner of like crypto-friendly VC, but also potentially, public listing where people are buying it in their brokerage account or something similar. So I thought that was super unique. But that wraps up my side of the news update.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, 2024 is such a different vibe. And I guess to kind of, tack on to sort of the change in tone, for anybody who's listening to this who happens to find themselves in the DC area this week, the Giving Block team is actually at the Bridge to Integrated Marketing and Fundraising Conference, or simply Bridge. We're at booth 227. So if you're there, if you plan on being there, stop by. The team is there. There's a lot of great content. We're headlining some speaking slots as well. So tomorrow we'll be on stage at 11:30 a.m. Eastern with Save the Children International, one of our closest partners in the crypto philanthropy game. We'll be talking about everything from, going after, those new younger donors and trends in AI, and talking everything about revolutionizing the fundraising game with crypto. So if you find yourself in the area, if you're planning on attending, we'd love to see you there. And in terms of what we are going to have coming around future episodes, we're going to be talking about some of our, end of year programming that's coming up. We have a lot of great things queued up for future episodes coming in August to get ready for that fall giving season. So if you're out there starting to make some of those tweaks, starting to fine tune that system, or starting to queue up some of those messages to donors, we'll be presenting some of that content here, on the podcast. So definitely bookmark this podcast, save it, share it, recommend us to a friend. We'd love to get this in front of as many people as we can. So with that, we're going to wrap things up. So on behalf of the Giving Block team,
one quick, I know we're here signing off, and Nick, I don't want to jump the gun here, but dare I say, maybe we tease out the fact we might have some more guests on the podcast coming up soon. So not going to spill the tea or anything, but we're excited to bring some unique content and perspective from potentially some new and exciting folks and industry thought leaders coming soon. So maybe a little call to action. Check us out in the next couple of weeks. I think we'll have something exciting, but I'll let you finish the sign off, Nick. I'm not here to rain on the parade.
No, man, I love that. I'm glad you said that. Lots of great stuff in the hopper. Can't wait for you guys to see it. And we'll see you next week.